Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat Podcast. In this edition, we'll be looking back at that fantastic win at the Etihad Stadium. Manchester City 0, Tottenham Hotspur 4. Now, we're live on YouTube, we're live on X and Facebook and Twitch this evening. We will also be previewing the Tottenham Hotspur v Roma game in the Europa League, which of course takes place on Thursday evening at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, 8 p.m. kickoff. Now, before I get into it, an announcement from Tottenham Hotspur Football Club around 20 minutes ago. It states we can confirm that goalkeeper Vicario has today undergone surgery for a fracture on his right ankle. Vicario will be assessed by our medical staff to determine when he can return to training. This is absolutely terrible news for Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, particularly after such a fantastic win and everyone being on a high right now. It just seems that these sorts of things happen time after time. Now, back with me is three returning guests, and this is an international podcast this evening. We have got Italian journalist Simone Delume back with us, of course, director with Football Station. Simone, great to have you here. How are you?
I'm fine, mate. I'm fine. Delighted to be back on the show.
Great to have you here. Also joining us is Gareth McGuinness, all the way from Ireland. Gareth, good evening. How are you?
All good, Chris. Great weekend. Obviously bad news there just come out, but trying not to think about it too much and trying still on a high from the weekend. So great to be on Monday night as usual. Looking forward to the podcast with the two boys.
Great to have you here, Gareth. And joining us from Melvin, he's just come back from Canada. I tell you, international podcast and a half. Melvin, you're joining us from Malta now. How are you?
Yeah, I'm well. It's been a while since I've been on, and specifically asked you to come back on because it's obviously been a while and needed to get some things out. And I listened to the pod and had a 7-hour flight from Canada and listened, I think, to about 4 or 5 podcasts in a row because I missed out. So I'm in my head. I'm still living. I lived out the Ipswich game and all the conversations we've had in between, and I've caught up now. Speak about City, so excited to be back and talk with Simone and Gareth, and obviously yourself, and looking forward to the podcast.
Great to have you guys here. Simone, let's start the show with you this evening. This breaking news from Tottenham Hotspur Football Club in the last 20-30 minutes. Vicario's today undergone surgery for a fracture on his right ankle. This is major news for Spurs, isn't it? It's terrible news.
It's terrible news. Yeah, definitely. Of course, in the season he has been got some troubles on set pieces, but of course we are talking about one of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League. So after a 4-0 away at the Etihad, there was no needing of this news. So let's wait for the scan. Let's wait for to discover, to find out how many weeks he will miss in this couple of months. It's a sad news also because the Spurs fixtures are very, very busy. So we are heading to the Christmas period, many games, a lot of points ahead, a lot of points that will describe the season. So it's a huge chance for Fraser Forster. Let's hope he's gonna be okay for the job.
From now until the end of the year, we play 10 games in 30 days, 7 Premier League, 2 Europa League and 1 League Cup. Gareth, let's get your thoughts on the news on Vicario. How long do you think he's going to be out for?
It's difficult to say. It'll depend on the fracture itself. I'm assuming this happened when he went down in the game. He went up, but it was a poor header from Porro, and he jumped. They won the ball and landed awkwardly, and he was down receiving treatment, and he played on. I can only assume he played on through the adrenaline. I remember, wasn't it Son broke his arm, and funny enough, went on to score the winner against Aston Villa one year. So just the adrenaline of it all probably kicked in. The fact that we were having such a good day, he's played on. Maybe done more damage. I'm not sure, but he obviously must have reported it after the game. Players probably had Sunday off, and then they come back on a Monday and had the scan, and it's obviously some sort of damage there, and they felt that it needed surgery. I would imagine we'll not see him well after Christmas. Middle of January, be hopeful of getting him back for Norfolk and Derby, maybe. But that could be quite optimistic depending on the fracture. I think Spurs maybe aren't quite sure themselves. It'll depend how fast it heals. But look, it's one of those things that happens. Liverpool have had injury problems to their goalkeeper, one of the best in the world, and they've been fortunate enough that a young goalkeeper like Caoimhin Kelleher, he's been excellent for Ireland's come in and done a great job. I don't think we have that luxury of, I think Forrester's an older goalkeeper past his best. I don't think he's particularly great with his feet. And you've seen in the Coventry game, he really struggled. Will he be better from crosses? I'm not sure. He didn't look particularly convincing in that game, but maybe he just needs a run of games. Look, your second choice keeper is never going to be as strong as your first choice. Other than Liverpool, I don't think there's any other team. Maybe Arsenal had it last year with Ramsdale, but it's impossible to keep two goalkeepers happy, and I think that's why you'll see Kelleher possibly move on from Liverpool. They all want to play, and you're only going to play if there's injuries or cup games. So, it's easy saying, should we go and get another goalkeeper? The reality is we won't, because Vicario will be back and he's the number one. Unless you're going to get somebody better than Vicario, that's not going to happen. Do you risk going with a young goalkeeper like Austin? Is he ready? Who knows until he's given the opportunity, but I would imagine Fraser Forrester is going to be the goalkeeper in place until Vicario comes back. And it always seems to happen to us. I mean, Bentancur was playing unbelievable before he got that injury. When he came back that last time, I know he's got the ban now, but he had a really strong. Then he got injured, and I think it was Vicario's best game of the season on Saturday. He was excellent. He didn't have to make too many outstanding saves, but he made half decent saves look really, really easy because he never parried anything. He was very sure with his hands, and he was very good in the air. So really frustrating. You only know what you have when you lose it, and I guarantee over the next few weeks we'll be praying for Vicario to come back, because I think Fraser Forrester is nowhere near the level of Vicario at this moment in time. So it's going to be a tricky period. There's so many difficult games coming up, but look, we just really are going to have to outscore teams anyway. I think that's what we've been pretty much doing this season. I know we got a clean sheet on Saturday, but I think we're scoring that many goals. There is games we can win by outscoring the opposition, and we're going to have to do that probably even more now. But it'll be interesting to see, Chris, because we done the analysis shows early part of the season, and we spoke about how they play out from the back, and it does start with Vicario, and he is quite good with the ball at his feet, and that is going to be a huge loss. Not just his shot stopping, but his ability to get us playing from the back. And Fraser Forrester's a keeper from a different generation where he wouldn't have grew up with that coaching, he wouldn't have grew up with that philosophy. So it's not something you should expect him to be great at. But ultimately, it's just going to be a big blow, and we're going to have to move on, Chris. It happens to a lot of teams, get injuries. And look, the one thing I would say this year is we haven't relied on one player at any time. We've had players out from time to time, and we've coped well enough over a run of games. So let's just hope it's the same.
Grant Jardine writes here, although Vicario is inconsistent, there's a massive gap to our backups, which I completely agree with. And I completely agree with you, Gareth. I think Vicario had a fantastic game at the Etihad. I called it the deck he had earlier. But the Etihad Stadium on Saturday made some fantastic saves. Of course, Manchester City were very wasteful in that final third, but anything that came Vicario's way, he dealt with extremely well. Melvin, in the last half hour, I've seen on social media so many Spurs fans saying that we are cursed. It seems like whenever we have something nice, whenever we do something dramatic and fantastic, and we're all smiling. Of course, I've no doubt that all four of us have been smiling, throughout our Sunday. Gone into work today, everyone's strutting their stuff, feeling absolutely fantastic about that win at the Etihad, and then, bang, there goes the news Monday evening. It's just so frustrating, isn't it?
Yeah, it's disappointing because we don't have really backup to him that's adequately, cover. You lose Romero, Dragons in, fills in. You lose, a midfielder, another midfielder slots in. Same with the wing. I think he was the only really weak spot in our team. I don't think we have adequate cover. Foster was just brought in, for financial reasons. He was free. He was English. He counted as an English spot, and I think we just stuck with him, and we haven't gotten to replace him yet, or to find competition for Vicario yet. I think we're getting there. We're gonna need to fill in that spot, but at the moment, we left it short. And I think in the summer, we did mention that we were light in that position, and it was brought up on the podcast. But the previous season, Vicario played the whole season, and we didn't have any problems. So we just thought, oh, maybe we'd get lucky again. And I just did a quick Google search to see how long an ankle fracture lasts. How long it takes to heal, and from Google it says depending on the body, somewhere from 6 to 12 weeks. So let's say 10 weeks. It's gonna be probably till next year, till early January, till the guy plays again. So thinking of the fixtures that we have, pretty strong fixtures. League Cup, Europa League, Premier League. It's gonna be tough, and it's going to be a big ask for Fraser Foster. In my head, I'm already thinking, we'll probably drop some points in the Premier League. We'll drop some points in the Europa League. But the main one for me, I really want to get through, is the League Cup. I really want to beat United and get in the next round. And I think if we can get through that game with Fraser Foster and we'll have Vicario back. I'm processing this, as we speak, because the news broke only 20 minutes ago. So usually it takes me a couple of days until I have to speak about this on the pod. So the first thing I thought of was the League Cup and how's that going to affect us? Because the league, we can drop points, because I don't think we're ready to compete for top 4 yet, even though we drop silly points and we're making steps in the right direction. I said in the summer, in August, when we had our chat 1-to-1, I expected us to be up and down, to have these type of victories and to have the Ipswich kind of losses. I expected us for this to happen from Ange, but we're seeing improvements on the pitch, and I don't think Ange will say. I mean, this is another challenge for Ange. Ange has been handed many challenges that he probably didn't expect to face. Probably Bentancur getting a suspension for something silly like that wasn't one of them, but this is one probably wasn't expecting. And it's not nice for the football club to have such injury, at a crucial moment. The Christmas period, the games come thick and fast, and you need to get points there, because that probably makes or break your season. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, in a good way and a bad way. He could have a really couple of games, or we could probably see how crucial Vicario is to this team. It's gonna be scary at moments, and it could be good. Hopefully, it's not such an impactful position, but like Gareth says, he's a crucial part to the build-up, and his saves that he makes in games, sometimes, he saves us the 3 points. Often he makes crazy, saves, which save us the game. Often, I know this season it hasn't happened as much as last season. Last season, I mean, without Vicario, would probably finish much lower than we did. But this season, the defense and the midfield's been helping out, and we haven't conceived such dangerous chances like we did last season. So we'll see. I mean, we'll take it game by game, and we'll see.
Melvin, just quickly on Vicario, or Fraser Forster, should I say? Would you expect Fraser Forster to play all of these games now, or will Brandon Austin get his opportunity? Because Brandon Austin signed a new contract at Tottenham recently. He's 25 years old, yet to feature in the Premier League. Of course, he has featured in many of the friendlies that we've played, particularly during pre-season. Will Ange Postecoglou trust Brandon Austin finally? Because a number of managers haven't.
Remind me, Chris, one of the backup goalkeepers in the pre-season made a ridiculous save. Was it Austin?
Austin, yeah.
He made a really good save in the preseason, and people started to question, why aren't we giving him a chance? So in moments like this, you have to take this opportunity to try him. You try him in the Europa League and save Foster for the Premier League. I know we play Roma next, and you want.
Well, we've got 10 games in 30 days, literally a game every 3 days. Can you expect Fraser Forster to be playing all of those games in the next 30 days?
That's probably at his age. You think not, but you will see. I mean, Postecoglou will probably try to play Brandon Austin. He'll give him 1 or 2 games. I just think the next game you'll give it to Fraser Foster, so he gets a bit warmed up for the Premier League, and then when the Christmas period comes in, and maybe Fraser Foster has a small knock or slightly there's a bit of fatigue and needs a rest, I think he'll play Brandon Austin, or perhaps I'll leave it to the manager. I'm sure he's experienced in this sort of thing, but the Premier League gives you all types of challenges, and this is probably one that he wasn't really expecting. But I'm sure all good managers, they try to think of the worst, even though I'm sure in his mind he did think if Vicario gets an injury, I'm sure they've planned this through, and hopefully they did say to themselves, what if Vicario gets injured? What are we gonna do?
Yeah.
And they've discussed this internally and have a plan.
Simone, of course, we've mainly got you on to be talking about Roma later on in the show. But before we do that, and it must be a perfect fixture for you, by the way, not only to be covering Tottenham Hotspur v Roma in the Europa League in the press box at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and of course going to the training session as well, Hotspur Way. But of course, you're also a Spurs fan. So let's start by talking about that City game on Saturday evening. Absolutely fantastic. City 0, Tottenham Hotspur 4. What did you make of the game?
Everything jailed. Everything worked in the perfect way. It was arguably the best page of the last 2-3 years for Tottenham, because winning 4-0 at the Etihad is not something that happens every day. So huge result, something incredible. Everyone in the world was expecting Pep Guardiola and Man City to be back on their winning ways, to smash Tottenham, to smash the eye line of Ange Postecoglou, and the things went in the opposite direction. So incredible performance. Absolutely delighted to see James Maddison back at his best, and then the rest is history. Of course, the Etihad. What a hard work from Tom Solanke that you are showing. Of course, for me, it's not a player that is worth 75 millions. He needs to perform. He needs to show, but give him time, because he always put an incredible effort on the team. So absolutely incredible. So delighted to see the team performing in this way. But of course, you know very well my feelings, my thoughts about Ange Postecoglou. It's impossible in modern football, in a long run like is the Premier League 30th game, to be and to perform on top level week in and week out. So he needs to start to understand that sometimes in football you need to win even 1-0. You need to win with the dirty side of the game, just like Jose Mourinho used to say, Antonio Conte used to say on their times at the club. So it's impossible to play that kind of football week in and week out. So I want to see reaction. I want to see motivation. I want to see consistency. I want to see a Spurs side taking the momentum with Fulham, with sides like Bournemouth, and it's gonna be easy, because we are talking about a side that was capable of winning 4-0 at the Etihad, but we are talking about the same team that before the international break used to lose at home to Ipswich to 1. So they need to find consistency on their run.
Simone, of course, it is very frustrating. A couple of weeks ago, we lost 2-1 at home against Ipswich, their first Premier League win of the season. And then, of course, you go to the champions, Manchester City, a very, very tough place to go. I might add, the last time they lost there in the Premier League was against Brentford 2 years ago. I know you have been extremely, critical of Ange Postecoglou and Tottenham so far this season. How does he get this team consistent? How can he get them firing consistently?
First of all, the players need to take responsibilities, and first of all, they need to find the motivation to play. For example, Ludogorets, for example, Rome, for example, Europa League. Of course, playing at the Etihad is not the same of playing Fulham at home, of playing at Vitality Stadium against Bournemouth. So they need to find motivation. Then, of course, he needs to fix the same mistakes, the same troubles. I'm not just talking about set pieces. I'm talking about the interpretation of the game, how you start the game. I'm talking about the high line. I'm talking about the same mistakes that week in and week out this team went on doing. So he needs to fix this kind of stuff, we are looking at the same mistakes since the start of the season. So I hope that 4-0 at the Etihad is gonna be a turning point of the season. So if you fix these kind of things, if Big Ange has got some plan B or some plan C, there is future in this project. If not, we are talking about a manager that is capable of winning 4-0 at the Etihad, but he's the same manager that used to lose, that managed in some way to lose at home to Ipswich, that draw points in Leicester, draw points in Newcastle, draw points against Crystal Palace. So at the end of the day, the board will look on the records, on the stats, on the points, on the position on the table. So we'll see in the next couple of months the position that Spurs will be in the Premier League.
Gareth, let's come to you. I'm going to put some pictures on the screen as you're talking about the Manchester City game, and feel free to talk us through from a tactical point of view. Of course, you are a UEFA licensed football coach. Now, it must be one of the best performances of the season, without question or doubt. But I go back to that consistency again. You know, a couple of weeks ago, we were all so low. You went on social media, Ange Postecoglou was getting slated heavily, the players getting slated heavily. You know, I don't think many people would have thought that we would have gone to the Etihad on Saturday and won 4-0. Now, I did jokingly say on the podcast after the City game that many people come up to me in the past few weeks saying, I think the score is going to be 4-0 City, not 4-0 Tottenham. You know, there were, a few raised eyebrows to say the least. But it was a fantastic performance, Gareth, wasn't it?
Absolutely incredible, Chris. I was actually thinking about this today in work. I'm 27 years of age, so I started supporting Tottenham when I was about 4, I can remember. But only really start to get really, really interested as you get older. So I would say sort of when Berbatov joined, around that time I would have been getting sick. I remember the lasagna get the season before, so maybe even go back to the 05, 06 was kind of when I started following the club. I can't think of a better, definitely away, but arguably our best ever Premier League one. And there's a few reasons I would say that. Man City were unbeaten for 2 full years at home. They're the 4 times champions. No one's ever done that before in the Premier League. And they go there and won just after Pep Guardiola signs a new contract and won in that fashion. I know they've been on a bit of a bad run, but they were all games away from home. I mean, it shocked the world of football. No matter what anybody says about Man City, everyone expected a response from Man City. And I think sometimes a wounded animal is dangerous. And Spurs completely, after the first time on it, completely took them apart. 11 v 11. Spurs were better in every department. It was no fluke result. Spurs, the scoreline didn't flatter them. Or in the first 10 minutes. The 80 minutes after that, the scoreline didn't flatter Spurs at all. I think back to the game against Man United, the 6-1. That was during COVID. You could argue no fans in there makes a big difference. And then I thought about it more. I thought then about, since Ange has been here, we've beat Man City away 4-0. We've beat Man United away 3-0. We've beat Villa away 4-0. So, yes, there has been really bad moments in there, and the away forms on a whole has not been great. But there's been some unbelievable performances on there. Even under Pochettino, we had some great days and more consistency, you'd have to say. But we always struggled away at the big grounds under Pochettino. I can't think of too many. I know we beat Chelsea once, and we ended that Stamford Bridge record. There was a Man City one, 2-1. I remember Eriksen scored, funny enough as well, like Madison on his birthday. But I don't think we ever won at Anfield under Pochettino. I remember a 3-0 against Man United, to be fair. But he was there a long time, and Ange is only here now, a season and a third, and we've had so many big results. And this is after losing Harry Kane as well. So, I mean, there's been some massive, massive signs of encouragement. And look, I know I've been criticised at times, and I've kind of backed the manager a lot, and I'm not going to say I feel justified or anything like that, but your eyes don't lie to you. There's been some unbelievable performances on there. It's about turning them into more consistent performances, and I think Simone's made some good points there. But what I would like to say to Simone and all our Spurs fans about this Plan B or Plan C is how many of the top managers have a plan B? Pep Guardiola is all about possession football. Yes, he'll make wee tweaks, but he'll rarely change his possession style football. Jurgen Klopp, no matter what players he had, he still played that high press. Even when Milner, Fabinho, Henderson were getting older, he still played the high line. He still played the high press. Wenger, for how good a manager he was, by the end, he never changed.
Yes, correct. Sorry, but at the end of every season, Guardiola, when he recognizes that it's time to win 1-0, to win 2-1, to win with the dirty side of the game, he knows how to do it. He knows how to defend. He knows how to play Ruben Dias, Guardiola, to play a defensive football when it matters. Postecoglou is only about ideas, only about philosophy, all about we need to play a certain type of football, we need to be us. So I'm not sure that it's gonna work on the long run. So I'm
what I would say is, though, we remember Everton beating Man City 4-0 in Pep's first season. So he had to go and get new players. They play his way. So I think Ange needs more time. I don't think this Spurs team at the minute is ready to win. They may be fortunate enough to pick up a trophy if we are good on our day. Hopefully that is this season. But I don't think when Ange visions this Spurs team winning, he believes it's with this current squad. I think he still feels he's maybe 2 or 3 short. He won't tell that to the players. He won't tell that to the media. But I do think this is very similar, and it remains to be seen whether it goes the same way. We're not on the same scale as these football clubs, but I think we are very, very similar to that Jurgen Klopp when he first came in. Yes, he had to go and maybe sold Coutinho for big money and brought in the likes of Alisson and Van Dijk. They needed that because they were getting tore up. I remember that game at Wembley. I think that was the last game, really. He went with the goalkeeper. He went and got Alisson in January, that 4-1 defeat by Spurs at Wembley, and I think it might have been October that season. So whilst these managers are all brilliant, they still have had to go and sign world-class players. They won. So I think Ange still needs that as well. But what I would say is Liverpool won 4-1 in Klopp's first season at Man City and lost at Watford 3-0 the week after. So there's very similar signs. It does take 2 or 3 seasons to get that consistency. Like Liverpool and Klopp's second season just got into the top 4 on the last day of the season, and then it went from strength to strength. I'm not saying it will happen here, but I think we have to remember this is not going to happen overnight, and we've seen glimpses of how good we can be. We've seen the inconsistent side, but there's been so many positive days in this sort of 15 months Ange has been here at the best teams. We've went to Villa and won 4-0. We've went to Man City and won 4-0. We've went to Man United and won 3-0. Really, really big away days. And I think that's really, really promising. If we can turn then results more consistently, I think we're on for a really good ride.
I agree with a lot that you say, Gareth. And I just want to add to this. Postecoglou used the analogy of pruning a tree in the summer. He said we did some pruning. And a bit of background to my life, I do a bit of farming. And when you prune a tree, it often looks a lot worse in the beginning, in the first year, because the branches are cut off, the dead wood is cut off. It looks a bit slim, a bit naked, until the strong branches grow, and then
Melvin,
then you start.
Just to add a little bit of balance, he also said he's not a gardener.
Yeah, but he did use that analogy. He did say we did some pruning, and it's exactly how I feel with the squad. He trimmed a lot of the excess weight, and now we're a lot slimmer. It's a young squad, and people go back. Every single podcast I listen to, Chris, every single one without fail, everyone mentions Pochettino.
Yep.
You have to ask yourself why.
Yep.
Why do we keep up? Because, and I'll tell you why. And I've thought about this a lot, because Pochettino had a team which started about 8 years before. This rebuild started under Harry Redknapp, and if you want to go a bit further, you could say Martin Jol started that.
No way.
And if you think of the players he had in the Champions League final, some of them started under Pochettino. Sorry, under Harry Redknapp. Kyle Walker and Danny Rose were bought under Harry Redknapp. And if you keep going further, there were players like Jan Tonkin, Hugo Lloris, Moussa Dembele, and you keep going. We got lucky, and we had the best player in our life come out of our youth academy and fall in our lap with Harry Kane. And Christian Eriksen was bought before. Pochettino inherited players that were already experienced 2, 3, 4, 5 years in the Premier League, and then we added to it and we refined it, and that's what. And we under Jose and Conte, we bought players that didn't match our footballing identity, so we had to start from the beginning. We had to take
and
losses.
also, Melvin, also as well, you have to remember the standard now is a lot better than when Pochettino was here. He didn't have Pep, he didn't have Klopp when he was here. Arsenal's on the rise again. It's a lot more difficult now.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second? Vicario has just posted on Instagram with a message. It said, I played 60 minutes at the Etihad Stadium with a broken ankle, giving absolutely everything I had for the team. Unfortunately, there was no way around this one. I needed surgery. See you soon on pitch. So a broken ankle for 60 minutes. Sorry, Melvin.
Yeah, no problem. Credit to him, he played 60 minutes. That was a massive win for us, and I'm sure, the pain he got today in the surgery, he will get through and come stronger. What I was saying before is, people don't understand that we keep putting this team, we keep judging this team based on what we had under Pochettino, and what we keep asking ourselves is we had to do like heart surgery with this football club. We had to start over. Our chairman had to release a statement to say, listen, we did wrong. We're gonna have to start over. And this is literally, it was starting off. The difference now, I feel, it won't take us 8 or 9 years to get back to the top, and we didn't even win under that time. It will take us a lot less to get back to competing again, to competing for the league, to be within the conversation, to be back in the Champions League. I feel that we need a couple of years in Europa League. I think we're starting to see the benefits of playing the Europa League. Pape Sarr is becoming a really, really good player, and he's one of the most players that benefited from playing in the Europa League so far. Yes, I believe 2 or 3 goals. And in the beginning of the season, he wasn't playing well, so he was benched. But he was used in the Europa League really, really effectively. And those are the type of games and experiences that he needs to grow and become a really good footballer. And we're starting to see the team mature slowly. And Gareth said, when we win big. 2, 3, 4 goals. The team needs to learn to win ugly when we don't deserve to win. It's a 1-0. Newcastle game, which we lost, we deserve to win. My brother keeps texting me. Now, I don't agree with my brother a lot, but he keeps texting me and telling me, we should be first place. I'm telling him, you're crazy. What he said, the games we've lost this season were ridiculous. They're crazy how we lost them. It's because we lost them because we have a bit of a young squad that's still learning and still developing. In a couple of years' time, and I'm excited about the future with Postecoglou. I'm fully behind this manager, Chris. I know we've had people on the podcast who are Anjou, and I've listened to these pods on the plane from Canada, and I was, in a way, I see why they are reacting this way, and I can sympathize because people want success immediately and they don't want to wait. But I'm all in on this project. If I had my poker chips, they would be all sitting on Ange, because I believe in him, and backing him doesn't mean signing £100 million players. Backing him means giving him 2-3 seasons where he doesn't win anything, or he finishes 5th. I believe, and this is the last thing I will say, and I believe we can finish 6th this season. We've made progress. As a football club, we could finish 6th and still have made progress, because we have direction, we have momentum, we have a philosophy, and we're building on it. And the victory against City shows that Postecoglou knows what he's doing. He's not naive. His high line and all of that was just to get the Tottenham players to play that way, to have it ingrained in them. I believe we played defensive against City, but because the philosophy was in the back of their head, we still played attacking football, and we scored 4 goals, and all of us are buzzing right now because of that.
Before we talk about the goals from the City game, Tim Sherwood on Ange Postecoglou said, shame on you guys for wanting this guy out. Talking about Ange doubters, by the way. He said, "This guy for me is a breath of fresh air, and this is exactly what Tottenham need." Melvin, let's talk about the goals from the City game. Of course, Dejan Kulusevski, what a fantastic cross in. This guy's been on fire. He seems to be a different player so far this season. Incredible. A fantastic assist for James Maddison, and hit it first time. Fantastic finish, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Kulusevski is a quality player. He's always been a quality player. He won young play, and Simone can confirm. At Parma, he won Young Player of the Year or something like that. And at Juve,
Yes.
he was played on the right. You know, he won the league at Juve. He played with Ronaldo. He has the mentality, Kulusevski, and when he speaks and he does interviews, and when you see him on the pitch, sometimes he just looks angry all the time, even though we're winning. He's either talking to himself, you know. When you really want to win, and when you have that elite mentality, it reminds me of, you know, LeBron James, that type of player. He's a big basketball fan, and it shows a bit on the pitch. He has arrogance, and I like every aspect of Kulusevski. And I've had friends of mine tell me years ago, Kulusevski is your best player, and I didn't believe them. He said, and this guy is a football player, by the way. And he was telling me, Kulusevski on the pitch, he does things where the people around him, you know, he does the dirty work. He's very strong. He has an engine on him. He's only 23, I believe, and it's insane the output that he's giving us this season. And he's versatile as well. Do we even know his best position? Because he played wing again, and for me, right wing for him was finished. I thought now he was a midfielder, but he played there, and he played excellent. And what a weapon to have for Postecoglou. You know, I think City were planning for him to be playing in central midfield, but he wasn't. He played right wing and got us the win. And really quality balls, really quality crosses from him.
Simone, let's come to you. Let's talk about James Maddison's finishing, because that one for the first one, of course, fantastic ball in from Kulusevski. As I said, Heung-min Son putting in James Maddison for the second. But the finish from James Maddison, such a clever finish, superb finish.
English blood, English number 10, proper Tottenham way. This is the Tottenham way. James Maddison. James Maddison is a fantastic player. We have been missing him so much. We have been missing a player with these characteristics so much in this couple of years since Christian Eriksen left the club. So we needed a player like him, and the performance he put at the Etihad was something incredible. The second goal is amazing. Of course, after the injury, after the Chelsea game last season, just like all the Spurs squad, he suffered so much. He lost a little bit of rhythm, a little bit of pace. But this season, especially in the last couple of months, we managed to find him back at his best. So I'm absolutely delighted to see him playing in this kind of level.
Simone, I hope you don't mind me mentioning this, but when we signed Kulusevski and Bentancur in that January transfer window, you weren't their biggest fans. Have they proved you wrong?
The evolution that actually Bentancur had under Antonio Conte was something incredible. Now we are struggling to see the old Bentancur, to be honest, because for me it's not a number 6, it's a number 8, just like Antonio showed us. Bentancur is not the best. We are not seeing the best side of Bentancur in this season. So I'm expecting a little bit more from him in the next couple of months, of course, when he will be back from the suspension. Kulusevski, of course, you know, Kulusevski at the end played an incredible game. He played some incredible football this season, but I share with Biganche the vision that is not a right, just like Merv would say, it's not a right winger anymore. It's a more a number 8.
Gareth, let's come to you. Let's talk about the third and fourth goals. Fantastic finish again from Pedro Porro.
Brilliant goal, Chris. Kulusevski's feet were magic. Getting away, plays the ball across for Solanke, slightly overhit. But what I liked about Solanke was his composure. just they roll it back. And I think Porro's a really, really great striker of a football. And he scored a lot of goals since he came here, actually. Since Ange, really, he's been scoring goals. I know he has a lot of shots. There was a stat, I think he hit the most shots at one stage this season of any player in the early part of the season. So he does like a shot, but he does hit the ball well. And it was almost like a striker's finish. It was like an arrow into that top corner, made it look easy. But it was really good to see. I thought we were very, very good on the break when it happened. I mean, if you think about the first half, Chris, I know you asked me this the last time, but I ended up chatting about our best Premier League one. But they really Spurs went out with that high press. It's funny because when we had the success against Man City in the past under Conte, Mourinho, Nuno, it was very much sit off, let Man City have the ball, and wait for them to make a mistake or won the ball back deep and then spring in the counter attack. Whereas on Sunday we went about it so differently. We pushed all our players up into their half. It's actually quite a game we play. Most coaches would do it now. It's almost like a transition game, where a lot of the coaches want when they're on the attacking side, they want the game played in their opposition's half, and they push them really, really high. And I think we seen United yesterday a wee bit with Amram, because he's only walked in the door. They were getting caught out at times by Ipswich, where some players were pressing, some players weren't. But Spurs got the press absolutely fantastic. Bar the first few minutes, I think there's one where Davis come in and he got swiveled by Foden, and they cut us open, and that was a chance that Cowlin missed. They took too long, and Davis got back in it, and it deflected for the corner. Other than that, I can't think of too many times where we were really, really suspect. And the high press was fantastic. That led to the second goal. The high press where Vicario gave the ball away. Madison won it back, and they played the 1-2 we saw and made it 2-0. And the third goal, I think Melvin was right. We seemed to, in that second half, we says, right, we're 2-0 up here. Let's not have another Brighton. Let's be a little bit more cautious. Sit back 10 or 15 yards and wait for the moments. And that's exactly what they did. And Chris, we were all very annoyed after the Brighton game. So you want to learn from your mistakes. And Spurs managed the game a lot better against Man City on Saturday than they did against Brighton. Whereas the Brighton game, we come out, try to do the same thing. And you're always going to get a response, especially away from home. When you're 2-0 up and you dominate the opposition, you're always going to get a response, especially against good teams like Man City, like Brighton. Man City, the same thing happened Man City at Brighton, where they were 1-0 up at halftime, dominated the half. Brighton come out in the second half, like a different team, and beat them 2-1. So, look, you're always going to have that issue away from home if you're not 3 or 4-0 up at halftime. And I think that was a massive learning curve. And judging by the Man City game, it was something that when we found ourselves again 2-0 up at halftime away from home, we protected it and we waited for the opportunities, and we were ruthless when they came. Or in the Kulusevski chance, I think Solanke probably should have played Johnson on, but he played Kulusevski and he made the chance himself and possibly should have scored. But I thought we were excellent in our execution. And I have to say, and even for how nervous I was at times, I never felt at any stage at 3-0 up were we going to concede. I thought we were really secure. Man City were huffing and puffing, really. There was a couple more chances when De Bruyne come on, and De Bruyne, to be fair, is an unbelievable footballer, and he can see things that our players can't. And then Haaland had a couple more chances towards the end. But look, really, really, I thought from back to front, Chris, it was outstanding. Every player was probably, certain players, like I think, were even played above what we're used to seeing. I couldn't think of one player that underperformed or didn't reach their highest level. And that is what Simone's right. And Simone's right about this. I know I says about plan A, plan B, plan C. I think the problem with Ange is we have to get better at plan A. Don't be thinking about plan B. He expects us to get better at plan A. But there's nothing wrong with what Melvin and Simone says about if you're 2-0 up away from home, sit back for 10 or 15 minutes, let the game fuzzle out, because the crowd's always going to be up after half time. Fuzzle it out and then go back on it again and finish it off. So really well managed, a really good maturing day for the squad, and I really hope now this is the way forward. And we've had our learning. It's going to be days we're going to lose games, of course, but there's a way to lose football matches. I don't want to see any more Brightons where we're 2-0 up and losing. That's just not acceptable. So once is fine, learn from it, and it doesn't happen again.
It would have been interesting, Gareth, wouldn't it, if we'd have conceded early on in that second half, because it is very, very fair to say, and even Pep said it in his post-match press conference, they had a lot of chances, but they were very wasteful in that final third. Now, Al Ben writes here, what if City had scored once and we'd have got punched? We can play great football, but my concern is the mentality and fight when down.
What I would say to that, Chris, is you see 2-goal leads overturned a lot in the Premier League. We focus on it when it's us, but it does happen quite a lot. You know, they always say 2-0, the next goal is crucial. And we've seen it a lot of times in the Premier League this year. You know, there's Fulham at the weekend, absolutely flying against the struggling Wolves, 1-0 up, cruising. Wolves get a goal back and go on and win it 4-1. It's all about, at this level, you're rarely going to go through a 90-minute game against another professional football team in the Premier League and completely dominate them for 90 minutes. It rarely happens. Teams are always going to get 10 or 15-minute spells, especially if they're playing at home. Whatever it is about being at home, the crowd reacts to a throw-in or a challenge, and all of a sudden momentum can swing like that. Because you have to remember, you're playing all world-class footballers. You don't get to the Premier League if you're not not world-class, but a top-class footballer. Of course, there's levels to being world-class, but you know, every player in the Premier League is a good player in some regard. So you're always going to have moments where games can swing. And that's something we have to manage better. When we are up 2-0, can we see through a 10 or 15-minute storm and then get back to playing again? And I think that was a really, really good learning curve. I mean, I think Madison spoke about it really well after the game. That has to be the standard from now on. We have to, and look, you're not going to play the guy every week. It's impossible. But there's certain standards. Our work rate off the ball was excellent. Our maturity was excellent. Our composure, the bravery to get on the ball and play was fantastic. I haven't seen a Spurs team do that away from home at a team like that, taking the ball in tight areas and playing. And look, a few times people were saying to me, oh, this is a bit risky. But that's the way they're trained to play. And for the risks you take, it's about the rewards. And the amount of times we played around in them tight areas and broke, and all of a sudden it was 4v3. So, it's one thing to sit and criticise if you give a goal away. But at the end of the day, a lot of our chances created and a lot of our goals, they come from playing them tight areas. So it's what do you want? Do you want them to start kicking it long again and going back to the old ways of the Conte and Mourinho days and relying on being great at the back and, relying on taking every chance that comes your way? That's not the way forward for me. The teams that have won the Premier League over the last few years have all been teams that score goals, play in tight areas, and are really good to watch. You have to go back to Leicester, really, for the last or Conte, supposed to Chelsea. And that was, nearly 10 years ago now. So the Man Cities, the Liverpools of the world have changed how the Premier League is won these days. And the only way we're going to get better as a club is by going through these spells and learning how to play under pressure. I thought the Ange's decisions, Chris, they bring Madison in, work the treat. Needed him on that, if he was going to be at his best, play in the tight areas. I thought his leadership on the pitch was really, really good. Someone I've been quite critical of him at times. I think that was his best performance all round. I think Gary Neville says in his podcast that it's the best he's seen Madison off the ball and his leadership qualities, and that's exactly what we've been missing. So a really good day all round, but it can't be a flash in the pan. It has to lead to more consistency now. And we'll look back in 3 or 4 months' time and say that was the day Ange's Spurs took 5 steps forward and not 2 steps forward and 4 back the week after. So look, I'm pretty positive that that'll be ingrained in them now, that if he's listened, if he's learned to cope with these kind of situations, look how good we can be. Because, Chris, there's no other team in the Premier League that are boasting the scorelines that Spurs are. Yes, there's teams that are more points, but there's a real consistency when Spurs are at their best. Teams cannot cope, and it's good teams. It's West Ham's, it's Villa's, it's United. I know United are going through a tough spell, but it's Old Trafford away, Man City. We're not talking about beating Championship teams. These are proven Premier League teams.
I did say that on Saturday, actually, although I really, really enjoyed that win on Saturday. It is about staying level-headed now and having that consistency. Of course, we've got a tough week coming up. Roma on Thursday that we'll come to in just a couple of minutes. And then, of course, the Fulham game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Sunday. Melbourne, before we go on to the Roma game, do you want to talk us through the 4th goal? Because Timo Werner outran Carl Walker, that fantastic run. That will do his confidence the world of good. Of course, he scored against Manchester City in the League Cup recently and now assisting Brennan Johnson. Just showing these pictures here of Tottenham on the counter-attack. And what a wonderful run from Timo Werner, crossing it to Brennan Johnson here, as you can see at the back post, bursting into the box. tapping home. Another goal for Johnson, another assist for Timo Werner, another goal for Tottenham, 3 points at the Etihad. What did you make of the goal, Melvin?
Yeah, I was literally about seconds before that. I was telling my dad, there's no way City are going to score today. It's not their day. It's our day. And I told him we're probably more likely to score again rather than them scoring. And then Johnson hit the post literally seconds after I said that. And then we actually did score. So I was delighted that we scored the fourth. You know, a massive boost of confidence for Timo, which is something that he needs because we need him because it's a really long season. And Johnson continues his good scoring streak. You know, already I believe on eight goals, something like that. And you know, he's on track to touch 20 goals or 20 goal and assists in a whole season, which is something that a lot of people didn't think he was capable of. He's one of our most important players. He was dropped-rested today because, you know, the tactic from Postecoglou worked. And yeah, he's one of the players I'll probably start both of them against Roma. You know, rest Son, rest Kulusevski. You know, Roma's not going to be an easy game. It's not going to be a hard game, but it's a tough European game. But you know, I'm sure we'll discuss Roma in a second. But yeah, the fourth goal was probably something that the fans needed for, you know, to have a statement win like that. We needed something like that for the fans to go home happy. Chris, you know, you were there at the stadium, raining and all of that. The fourth goal just tops it off, and the next day, all I keep getting is messages from Liverpool fans and people seeing me on the streets be like, "What the hell did you guys do?" And yeah, it was a statement win, and I'm happy it happened, and it's something that we've been told by Celtic fans, Chris, that this type of game will happen, and I think that was the first one, and I think some people called it our best victory or something like that. But I think up till that one, it was the Liverpool 2-1 at home. But that one was a bit. They said we got lucky because of the VAR and the red cards. But this one, I think it was convincingly that one of our best days.
Sorry, lads. Do you know what made me laugh as well? Remember when they says Ange thinks it's St Mirren or Kilmarnock every week? We just went to the champions and spanked them 4-0. Everyone says this man doesn't know what he's doing. He's St Mirren, Kilmarnock, Ross Counties. You can't do that in the Premier League. He goes to the champions, haven't lost in 2 years, 52 games, and spanks them 4-0. This is a man that knows what he's doing. Absolutely. Is he a bit arrogant? Is he a bit bullish? 100%. But they all are. Klopp, Guardiola, Mourinho, they were all arrogant managers. The best managers were arrogant. So, look, I have no problem with it.
Let's come on to preview the Roma game now. Of course, back in Europa League action on Thursday. So let's come to you. Firstly, I wanted to ask you about Claudio Ranieri because, of course, he started his football career at Roma as a player. He is now 73 years old. This is going to be his third spell as manager. He was appointed just under 2 weeks ago. He managed Roma between 2009 and 2011. Again in 2019, and now again in 2024. Of course, he's been around the block, 73 years old, as I said. He knows the Premier League extremely well. He knows Europe very, very well. What do you make of this appointment, Simone, and what do the Roma fans make of this appointment?
Roma fans are very happy, Chris, because he's one of them. So the board, the club, Friedkin Group, that now decided to invest in Everton Football Club as well, decided to give, after they sacked Daniele De Rossi on September, on the early stages of the season, they decided to calm the fans, to calm the crowd, giving them back one of them. And Claudio Ranieri is, of course, someone that knows how to be one of them, to drive a club like AS Roma. It's a sensational story in terms of the romantical side of football, because just like you were saying, he started his football career as a Roma player. Then he developed his career in Cagliari as a manager. Then he went everywhere, and he won that title with Leicester in 2020, in 2016. Last season, he said that it was the last one as a manager. He decided to retire as a professional manager. Then the Roma call went back, and he simply couldn't say no. Of course, we know Claudio Ranieri. You know, also in England, Claudio Ranieri is not an offensive manager. He's not someone that loves to play attacking football. He loves to sit down, to sit back and defend, to study how to strike on set pieces. So I'm expecting a very offensive Ange Postecoglou's side, try to kill the game as soon as possible. I'm expecting a Roma side sit back, and they are gonna sit back and defend, and maybe try to exploit set pieces or situations like that. Of course, it's a very, very difficult season, tough season for them. They are in the right side of the table, so it's gonna be a game between two sides that played an opposite game of football.
Simone, what's gone wrong for them in Serie A this season? Because they're currently 12th in the Serie A table. Played 13, won 3, drawn 4, lost 6, and their record in the Europa League so far this season: played 4, won only 1, drawn 2, and lost 1. They're sitting 20th in the Europa League table. Of course, there's 36 teams. They've got 5 points. What's gone wrong for them so far? Is it just the fact that they haven't been performing? Are their players just not performing to the standard that they used to?
At the start of the season, their new sporting director decided to buy players without knowing what Daniele De Rossi, that was the manager, really wanted. So they failed to build a proper team. The old era, the Mancinis, the Cristantes, the Pellegrinis, the players of Jose Mourinho struggled to find their way to become a proper team, a proper new team with the new ones that the new sporting director coming from France, the young Guy Solfi, brought to the club. Then after 4 games, the Friedkin Group, the owners of the club, decided to listen to the CEO, that was Lina Sulloku, the CEO of the club, and sack Daniele De Rossi. He paid for, just like, you know, in football, stuff like that can happen. The manager, the head coach pays for everyone, and they made a huge mistake because they were building again under Daniele De Rossi. They hired Ivan Juric from Torino, but it was not at the level. It was not a level like an important club in Italy, just like Rome deserved, and they failed completely. So it's another change. Claudio Ranieri clearly means we will arrive in May, in June. We will see what's going to happen. It's going to be a transitional season for them. But Spurs need to respect them a lot in Europe, because under Jose Mourinho they did magnificently well in the last couple of Europa leagues. So they won the conference 3 years ago. They arrived in the final in Budapest against Sevilla 2 years ago. Last season they got knocked out only by Bayer Leverkusen in semi-final. So they are a team that knows how to play on Thursday. They know how to play Europa League. They know what they want. They will try to score by set. They will try to sit back, try to win as many corners as they can, and be careful because they know how to score on set pieces. And I don't know, how many teams in England defend worse than this Tottenham side on set pieces.
Simone, can I ask you a question? I know you were saying there that the Roma fans are quite happy with the romantic side of Ranieri coming back. But this is like a veteran manager. You know, it's almost like Roy Hodgson coming back to Crystal Palace. You know, it seems like it lacks inspiration. You know, seems like just to appease the fans. But, you know, Ranieri, since he left Leicester, really, he's not had much success. He's retired and come back again. Like, if I was a Roma fan, I would be worried that this is the direction that they're going. You know, if it would be like us bringing back Harry Redknapp for a season. You know, I just don't understand that as a club, how do they expect to progress with a veteran manager that hasn't done much in the last few years?
They are in their Ryan Mason phase, I believe. The guy spoke to me today and told me it's a disaster. Yeah. We're in a relegation battle, he told me. Because I spoke to him before this podcast to get a feel of what Roma are like. He told me, I said, which standout players you have? He said, we have one Italian left winger. And he said, one French midfielder. He said, that's about it. He said, the rest are from the old Jose regime. You know, Cristante and Pellegrini, which you mentioned, are good players. And Dica is a player that we were linked with for a while and went to Roma. And fans were disappointed that we didn't get him. But the rest, I think we should really be beating them. Even if we play, our B team, we should really be beating them, especially at home.
I'm just surprised that's the direction that they've gone. They've gone with an old veteran-style manager. It's no ambition about that. Roma are a big club. I just can't understand that.
They just like Mel was saying, they accepted their situation. Now we are a middle table team. We are in a total transitional season. So taking back Ranieri provides at least some values to the crowd, to the people. He is one of them. So we'll see at the end of the season. There is a storm. We need to be a ship. We need to have a sailor that help us to arrive at the end of the season. So the situation is just like that. At the end of the season, Ranieri will become a director for Roma, and he will help the Friedkin group to find their new manager. So it's a total transitional season towards the end. The new Roma project will start from June. We start from July.
Simone, was it true that they nearly re-signed De Rossi after sacking him? They were in talks to bring him back. Was that true?
No, it's not true. It's not true because they.
I'm surprised that De Rossi, because I remember when he came on after Mourinho, he had a great start.
Yes.
I thought they were going in the right direction. They were starting to play about a good foot. No, under Mourinho, they had to suffer with the same type of football that we had, and it was a circus off the pitch. He was getting sent off every second or third game, and De Rossi come on and they started to play good football and they were good to watch. And obviously the director and Hammond had fallen out, and I know that the start of the season wasn't great, but I'm very surprised that they pulled the plug so early, because it looked like at the very start of the De Rossi reign that they were going in the right direction. And I think Roma are very similar to yourselves, that they've had so many near misses. They haven't got over the line. I know they won the Europa Conference League, but other than that, they haven't won a lot of trophies in the last sort of 30 years. So I was surprised that they didn't give De Rossi more time.
Yeah. There is some truth on Daniele De Rossi, because what I got to know is that Daniele De Rossi, for all the summer, was having a sort of discussion week in, week out, day in, day out, with the CEO, with a director of the club that was Lina Sololoku from Greece, and the Friedkin group decided to trust, to believe in what Lina was saying. So they sacked De Rossi after 4 weeks, four games. And after what happened, the crowd decided to attack the CEO, and the CEO resigned. So Friedkin group, after this kind of situation, lost the manager, lost the CEO, lost the directors. So something incredible really happened to Rome. So I think that they decided after this kind of situation, let's go back Claudio Ranieri to help to gain back some serenity or some.
It sounds like a club that's in an absolute mess, and we could. I know we're playing a big name in Roma, but they just seem in such a mess. And I caught glimpses of their game against Napoli at the weekend, Chris. And to be honest, I mean, they're a big club going. They're a bit like Man United of the Premier League at the minute. They're a big name, but they're going in the wrong direction. So I think whilst it looks on paper they're the most glamorous game in the 8 games, I think this is a game that we really should be winning.
Yes.
We'll come on to that in a second, Gareth.
They scored 14 goals in 13 games. We scored 27 goals in 12. So it shows you that, I mean, we could really pummel this team if we turn up.
Simone, could you give us a bit of a description of how Roma's season have gone result-wise in Serie A? Because in the Europa League, as I mentioned, they've played 4, 1-1, drawn 2, lost 1. A 1-1 draw against Athletic Club, a 1-0 defeat against Elfsborg, Dynamo Kiev, they beat 1-0, and then Royal Union, they drew 1-1. What have they been like in the Europa League performance-wise?
Well, in the league, they were sometimes abysmal, absolutely abysmal under Ivan Juric. A sort of boring defensive football, but it was not working. It was just defensive football, but a losing type of football, because the players didn't trust the manager. After 2 months, the Fredkin group decided to get rid also of Ivan Juric. So they were hard to watch, tough to watch, and the table clearly reflected the situation. A very boring side at the end of an era, because this is the end of the Mourinho and the Rossi era. It's going to be a transitional season. Paulo Dybala will leave the club at the end of the season. So it's a very, very hard moment for them. But of course, maybe under the lights of the lane, in London, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, an important occasion for them, a big occasion. They know they've got experience in Europe. It's a game that Tottenham must not underestimate, because they know how to read this kind of games, how to read this kind of situations. So in the league, I'm not expecting them to finish in top 6 or top 7. I'm expecting them to finish as a middle table team. In Europe, we don't know. I think that they will fail to finish into the top 8. I will think that they will qualify for the playoff for the last 16. So they will play in February.
Chris, wasn't the 2 contenders for the job? Quickly, sorry, Chris. I think they were narrowed down to Frank Lampard and Claudio Ranieri, and that tells you that they don't know what they're doing. You couldn't have 2 opposites.
There is some truth on it, Gareth, because the freaking group nowadays own Everton Football Club, and Everton Football Club remind us of Frankie Lampard. So some agents actually send the name of Frankie Lampard towards the freaking group, but they decided to go to an Italian name, an Italian old man that knows quite well the Serie A, knows to handle this kind of situation. Roma nowadays needed someone that knew the situation, not another experiment, another name, another strange solutions. And especially because in Spanish and Italian football, the English name never went good. You remember Gary Neville in Valencia, for example, many years ago. It was a total disaster. So English managers in Italian football never worked.
Simone, who would be the standout players for Roma? Who should we look out for? And one question that I wanted to ask as well is that the opposition match previews, whenever I do them, whenever we play a team in the Europa League this season, all 4 opposition previews, the people that have come on, they've been very surprised by my question of, will you go strong? Because they've all come back and said, this is European football. We take this very, very seriously. Are Roma going to take that same view, especially as Ranieri is new to the club this season? Now it's his 3rd spell, but of course he's going to want to win in Europe. He's going to want to do extremely well at the football club. So will they put out their strongest possible 11, do you think?
Yes, definitely. They are trying to find out. They are trying to understand if Paulo Dybala can play or not. They will in Naples. He played just 4 or 5 minutes, nothing more. But I think that even if he's not gonna start the game, he will play an important part in the second part of the game. Mainly if the game itself is gonna be open. If Tottenham will manage to kill the game in the first half, then it's gonna be a completely different game. I will pay attention to Artem Dovbyk, that is the Ukrainian striker that went from Girona, the revelation of last La Liga. It was the Pichichi, the player that scored so many goals in the last season of La Liga. So I will pay attention to the striker, because He's a very, very interesting player. He's strong physically. He's tall. He knows how to play the English side of the game. So second balls. He's strong in terms of the header. So I would pay attention to the striker, Artem Dovbyk.
Simone, lastly, about this game, are the Roma fans looking forward to it? Do they think they're going to come to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and get a good result?
Yeah, definitely. They are. I was checking to the prices of the flights, Chris, from Rome. They are absolutely crazy because many Roma's fans will be in London. I'm expecting an away end full of energy, full of passion, and they will support the team as they always do.
Gareth, let's come to you on Roma. Do you watch Serie A much? Have you seen much of Roma this season? If so, what have you made of them?
I'll be honest with you, right? I watched more of Roma when Mourinho was there. Not so much for the football, just for the sideshow. I haven't had the pleasure of watching Melvin's favourite manager too much this year, Antonio Conte. But I did tune in last night for this bits of the second half. I was watching that United game, so when that was over, I tuned in for the end. Wasn't particularly... I remember watching the Inter Milan and the Napoli game the week before, and I couldn't believe it was the two top teams playing each other. It was just so boring. But Simone will tell you, I don't think the ball moves as quick, and the game is as quick in the Serie A as it is in England. But look, we can't be under it. We can't be under. What's that?
The Serie A play different football than the Premier League. It's not.
Yeah, to be honest, I do like watching. I like watching Atalanta. I like watching when they play, because they're a bit more better on the eye. They press, and they're very, very good. And I watched them in the Europa League last year a lot. But I tuned in to watch a wee bit of it. I agree with Simone. I think Dovbyk, I've seen him at the Euros as well, and he had a brilliant season last year. I think for Girona, was it Dovbyk?
Yes, Girona.
Yeah, he's a handful. And he's big and powerful, and he'll love the physical battle. And I think set pieces is going to be their best route to goal. But I just can't see. They seem in such a mess. The only thing I would agree with, Chris, is the 100% they'll play their first 11, because we just beat Man City 4-0. I'm telling you that we're a big scalp at the minute. That would have sent shockwaves around Europe. That result, anybody that has an interest in football would have heard about this. So we've now set the standard. Roma's going to be thinking, and Ranieri, once they put himself back on the map, he's been wheeled out of his retirement home. They come back in, and his second games against Spurs away. This is a big game for him, a big game for Roma. They'll be looking at Spurs as a big scalp, and if they needed any incentive to up their game, it'll be for this game because of what we just did to Man City. So, but how much you can up your game based on the mess you're in around you and the lack of confidence, the form. They were really poor against Napoli as well. I just can't see any outcome than a Spurs one. We haven't played our best football in the Europa League compared to the Premier League, but I do expect us to win this game. But I do think Simone says, I do think Roma will break up the game. They'll make it difficult. They'll try and rattle Spurs a bit like what Crystal Palace did a few weeks ago when the ball, I think, was there 7 minutes out at the end of the first half and 7 at the end of the second half. A lot of time wasted and stuff. So if we can get an early goal, it'll change the landscape of the game. And if we get that early goal, I think we'll win quite comfortably. But look, this is Roma. I think it's they've got 13 points from 13 games in the Serie A, 14 goals scored in the 13 games. So they only average really one a game. So they aren't littered with goals. And if they're looking at our numbers, thinking the Spurs team have spanked teams 4 this year a fair few times, they'll be thinking that this is a game they really have to be on it and really tight at the back. And I do expect them, they let us have the ball, probably not press us high, very much in a deep block, what Ipswich did, and wait for the moments, because Spurs will be vulnerable from set pieces. They'll be vulnerable to the all counter attack. Dybala, if he's fit, is a very special player on his day. El Shaarawy's been about. The Dovbyk, they can get crosses onto him. He's good in the air. And as well as Dragusin and Davis done against Man City, that doesn't mean they're the way forward and they'll be as great in this game. Everybody can have a game where everything goes right. So it'll be a big test. Dragusin's not been that convincing in Europe for me. I think Ben Davis, to his credit, has been absolutely excellent when he's been called upon this season. I know we're going to go through the teams we think will play and the team that Dan's will go with. But I would just be very, very mindful of underestimating, because I think we underestimated AZ Alkmaar. We didn't, we weren't great against them. We weren't great in Budapest, I don't think, Chris. I know the pitch and the conditions didn't help, but I've yet to really see us flex our muscles in this Europa League yet. And whilst I'm not too worried about it, because I think we're going to get through, it would be nice they put a statement out there in Europe against a big club like Roma and say, well, look, that's the level now. Because I haven't seen anybody in Europe yet. I know Lazio was doing quite well, but I'd love to see somebody go out and really, really take a stranglehold and go, look, that's the team they beat. Spurs are the team they beat. Lazio are the team that's won their 4 games, as it says there. But look, very much we can. I want us to finish as high as possible in this league phase, because it means then you're supposed to get an easier route with a new tennis seed format. But honestly, Chris, on our day, I think we beat any of these clubs, and that's not me being big-headed or cocky or arrogant. If you can beat Man City 4-0, Villa 4-0, Man United 3-0, you can beat anybody. And I think the fact that knockouts is 2 legs, Chris, will give us a huge advantage. I think over 2 games, I think we're capable of throwing a stinker on, in one of those games, but I think we're equally as good as blowing teams away in the other one. So I think we're going to be strong contenders on this Europa League, Chris, and I do expect us to be towards the end of the season still on it and competing. So I would like to see, I think I said in the group chat today, Chris, that whilst I've not been too bothered about the games, and I think the last time I was on here, we were chatting about AZ Alkmaar, and I was more worried about Crystal Palace. I think tomorrow night is a big game, Thursday night's a big game, because we've lost that last game. If we were to go and lose this one, we're starting to look over our shoulder a wee bit. So I think, the way Rangers are going at the minute, Chris, I can see when we play Rangers, we're going to be playing a Rangers team with a new manager, and they're one of those clubs over the last few years, when they sack the manager, they get an automatic bounce, and the Rangers manager's hanging on by a thread. I'm not sure he'll make it for 2 weeks' time. So the last thing you want is going to Rangers, Ibrox, absolutely packed house, and you've just lost your last 2 games. So I think this is a really important game. Get the job done. And then the Rangers game, although they're not playing well, it'll still be a really, really incredible atmosphere. The Scottish teams absolutely love playing the English teams. So that will be an important game as well.
They're all big games. Melvin, let's come to you. I know you watch Serie A a lot. What have you made of Roma this season?
They're struggling. I mean, really good friends of mine are Roma fans, and I speak to them, and they tell me how they feel. And they're not happy. When they had Jose there, and they were constantly there in Europe attacking, and they're in the conversation for Champions League. I mean, Roma are a big name, but in Italy they don't win trophies. A guy told me recently. He said we're on the same boat. We're always there and in the conversation, but we never get it over the line. And until Jose went to the club, and then they won the trophy, and they were buzzing. They see him as an idol there. They loved him. They were really, really sad when he left, and they haven't been the same team since. I mean, they've lost key players in that regime. I mean, they had a really solid defense, and they've lost. They still have a really good midfield who do frighten me. It depends who we play. Cristante, Pellegrini, and the French lad in the middle, 3 are very, very strong, very powerful midfield. I feel we can't play an Archie Gray, we can't play a Bergvall, or they're gonna get bullied a little bit. They're gonna get physically dominated. I mean, that's why they were so strong in Europe. They're a very physical team, Roma, especially under Jose. They were very physical. And they relied on the quality of Dybala, and they had Tammy Abraham, who's a big miss for them, and it's gonna be an interesting game depending on the lineup. Like Gareth said, if we play our best 11, we can beat anyone. But I just feel Postecoglou has to rest a few players. I mean, Ben Davies. I know we'll get into the lineup in a few minutes, but I think, Dragozin will love playing in an Italian team again. I've been really impressed with Dragozin and happy with him. And I'm a massive fan of his. I just think his physicality in games like this is really, really an asset for us, because he throws his body in, he puts it on the line every single time, and it's going to be a physical game. And I just think we're going to find it hard to create, because they're going to try to be really physical with us and take it, man for man, and make us suffer in that aspect. I don't think they're going to come to try to play football. I think they're going to still try to play like they play under Mourinho. They're going to, try to win set pieces, corners,
Yes.
and they're not going to come to us and try to play, football. The Italians, they slow the game down. They call it tactical. I before I dated my girlfriend, fiance now, I hated Italian football. I used to call it boring. I used to call it, anti-football. And in the last 6 years, this is what love does to you. I've been watching, Serie A, and and we've bought players from the Serie A, so I've grown to respect it and enjoy it, and I like their managers, I like their players, and it just shows that sometimes there's a bit of like stigma and pragmatism, and we think the Premier League is above all leagues, and it's the best football, the best players, and the truth is that Italian clubs are just as good. They can beat the English teams. I remember, teams in Aston Villa and Brighton. When Brighton were in the Europa League, they struggled. They couldn't win their games. They couldn't beat these teams. Italian teams are really good. They find a way to win, but sometimes the match is boring. And I just feel it's going to be a boring game. It's going to be in a 1-0 or a 1-1, and they're going to come and try to suffocate Spurs and try to win the game physically rather than on the pitch. That's how I feel Roma's going to attack us.
Well, I'm glad people have bought their tickets already.
Yeah.
Simone, let's come to you. Just want to get all of your thoughts on Tottenham in the Europa League so far this campaign. Of course, played 4, won 3, lost 1, most recently losing Galatasaray 3-2. It's fair to say Galatasaray should have scored an absolute hatful before Spurs very, very nearly nicked a draw in Istanbul. What an atmosphere that was, by the way. And then what we'll do is we'll finish with predicted lineup. But Simone, let's start with you on Tottenham in the Europa League this season. What have you made of them?
Finally, they seems to take seriously the competition. The fixtures, to be honest, were quite easy at the start because Ludogorets away, as at home, they were not complicated games. When they went to Istanbul in that atmosphere, it was hostile. It was absolutely hostile. They've got huge players. Victor Osimhen destroyed Tottenham, destroyed the Postecoglou eye line. 9 points out of 12. I think that it's a fair amount of points. So, which I think that Spurs have got everything to finish into the top 8 of the big table. So it was as well a huge opportunity to see the youngsters. I was quite impressed, not just on Lucas Bergvall, but mainly, of course, as everyone with Maggie Moore. What a player! I'm a little bit sad that he got injured in some weeks ago, a couple of weeks ago, because he was absolutely brilliant and he was gaining more game time in Europa League. So I think that it was the perfect competition, the perfect moment, the perfect platform for him to develop his skills with the senior team. So I'm quite happy to see how Spurs developed the start of their European campaign.
Simone, what do you make of the new format, and would you think that Tottenham are one of the favourites for the competition?
I think I love, to be honest, the new formula because to be honest, I was one that loves the draw in Lyon or the old group phases. But I think that in this way you will play more or less the same level, and you will find. You will fight against everyone to finish into top 8 in the next round of 16. So I think that it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be good. And Spurs, by the technical side of the game, are one of the favorites of the competition. I think that one thing is to being considered as one of the favorites. Another thing is to arrive to play in quarterfinals, to play semifinals, to not have injury, to play from the start the game in a serious way. Europa League is not the Conference League. Europa League is a very, very hard competition when you arrive at the end, because you will play maybe Spanish football, Spanish clubs that loves to play the competition. Italian football loves to play the competition. So it's not easy. It's not easy, and it will never be easy.
Lazio, one of the favourites, Simone, would you say?
Yeah, because they they rebuilt the team in a perfect way. Huge credit to their manager, Marco Baroni. They play incredible football. They are strong also in the physical side of their game. So Lazio will play a huge part of the competition.
Gareth, let's come to you. What have you made of Spurs so far in the Europa League? Of course, beating Karabag 3-0, Ferencváros 2-1. That wasn't an easy game, as you mentioned earlier. AZ at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium 1-0, and most recently losing 3-2 against Galatasaray. It's fair to say Ange Postecoglou has made a number of changes. As soon as we get your thoughts and Melvin's thoughts on Spurs in the Europa League this season, we'll go to the predicted lineups.
Chris, it's been a lot of changes, and you're always going to have disrupted rhythm when you're making so many changes. He's given a lot of the young kids game time, and it's great experiences for them. You know, he says this: you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't rotate. Look at the injuries we've had, and we've been rotating anyway. So, if we hadn't been rotating, how many more injuries would we have had? And I think the way Ange's teams play, always at risk of injuries, the strains, the muscle injuries because of the high press, the sprints. So I do think he has to rotate. And if you're looking at it now, although this Roma game's important, is it more important than the Bournemouth game next week? Is it more important than Fulham at the weekend and Chelsea the week after? That's up for every fan to debate, because we have got Bournemouth and a midweek action next week. So we've got 3 Premier League games where I'm sure Ange will want to go strong in all 3 games. So you're thinking there has to be a game on there that is going to heavily rotate. And the fact that we've won 3 out of 4, I do think it's more important, because we've lost the last game. We need to go a bit stronger in this game. But I have a feeling with a Vicario injury as well at the weekend, and the fact that we had that big one on Sunday, he's going to rotate a wee bit more than maybe that he would like to do or should do. Because I can imagine we're going to go very strong against Fulham, strong against Bournemouth, strong against Chelsea, and then possibly rotate against Rangers again. And then we've got Southampton, and then we get United and Liverpool. So it's you think about them two, there's 4 midweek games between now and Christmas, and you'd imagine that the league game against Bournemouth and the League Cup game quarter-final against United will be considered a bigger priority at the moment, because of Premier League's your bread and butter, and the fact that we're in the quarter-final League Cup and we're at home against a team that we had a great record against since Ange has come here, against Man United. So I'm assuming he's going to rotate in this one, because I'm looking at the other games and I'm thinking, where is he going to rotate? So because we, and it's a nice problem to have. Would we rather have a free week in between Southampton and Liverpool? Of course we wouldn't. We want to be in the League Cup. We want to win the League Cup. So the consequence of being in these competitions is you do have more games. So I do think we're going to rotate more. I agree with what Melvin says about physicality. I really want to see Sarr in there and Basuma in there against Roma. I don't think this is a game for Bergville, but I've got a feeling that Bergville will play.
Melvin, what have you made of Spurs in the Europa League this season so far?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I mean, the lineups are often interesting. That's probably the most thing I look forward to, to see who he picks, and more importantly, like who's he's resting, who from the young kids he's picking. Archie Gray's been, probably the first person I pick. I know he's playing him at right back, but he's the one I look forward to the most. Even Dragazin and Ben Davis, Sarr, these players have been playing consistently in the Europa League. Bentancur has a ban in the Premier League, so probably one of the first people on the list as well. He needs to play minutes, keep him fresh. Bergvall's been, up and down. He's still a young lad. He's full of potential, and these games will do him a world of good. I don't know if Mikey Moore is going to be fit and if he's going to be on the bench or not. I'd like to see him involved in some way. Because playing at home, to Roma will be, a physical team. I think Timo will start. I think Johnson will start. It's going to be a massive question mark to see if he's going to start Lancashire or Solanke. I've been happy with our Europa League performance. I've missed the one of the games because I was flying to Toronto at the time. When we lost and when Lancashire scored. You were there in Turkey, and I was getting updates on the WhatsApp from you guys and letting me know how we were playing. The score, flattered us in the end. I still haven't even seen the game. I saw the goals, but I never actually got to see the games. I think it was one of the few games within 15 years that I've missed. I've never missed a game, and weirdly enough, I had a flight booked that day, and I couldn't see it on the plane.
What game was that?
I can't even say it. Galatasaray. I don't know how to say the name.
Oh, the one you missed 15 years ago.
No. Oh, I don't know. I think the only game I remember missing was a League Cup game against Everton, and it was 1-0 at White Hart Lane. And my dad messaged me, and he said 1-0, and that's it. Didn't even tell me who scored.
I thought you were going to say it was one of Nuno's games.
No. I'll never miss a Spurs game, But yeah, after this, Gareth, I'll look it up and I'll let you know which game it was. And but yeah, I've been happy with us in the Europa League. I think it's like Simona said, it's not like the Conference League. I think the quality is much higher than Spurs fans think. And I know a lot of us think we're favorites for the competition, but I think with the injuries we have, and with us playing these amount of games, and I think our chances of winning this competition go down and down and down. I think we need a massive squad to compete, and even in the latter stages, the quality gets finer and finer. And I just don't see Postecoglou. I'm gonna say this, because let's say we had Jose as manager, he would at some point say, "That's it with the Premier League. I'm gonna put all the eggs in the Europa League." And
he would be sacked before the final because the form would be that bad.
For about 2 minutes. Can you mute him for about 2 minutes? Yeah. So I don't see Postecoglou ever saying the Premier League is now not the priority anymore. It's the Europa League. I don't see him doing that. And let's say we're in the quarterfinal and we're playing, I don't know, Lazio, and we have a Premier League game, and it's this, and we have a 1-0 lead. And we're going into the second leg. I don't see him resting players. So, and Jose would rest all his players and say, "I'm going to win the Europa League." And then I don't see Postecoglou doing that. And I think with the squad we have, we're not capable of competing, in Premier League and going that far in the season. That's what we already have injuries now. And I just don't see us get in the end. I think we'll fall short, and I think it'll be an experience for the team. And even if we have Europa League again next season, it will be a good experience. So I want to go as far as we can, and even in the League Cup, I mentioned I want to get as far as we can in the League Cup because I think that's a competition. I think Man United is a favourable draw. We're playing at home. I think the crowd will be buzzing. I'm buzzing for Roma as well. So. There's a lot of games to be excited for, and I'm definitely looking forward to this game.
Melvin, I think it is fair to say, when you said earlier that a lot of people mention Maurizio Pochettino, you do mention Jose Mourinho on these podcasts a lot.
Yeah, because he is. I think we missed a trick with Jose. I think he came to the club at probably the worst time in our history. I think we had a declining squad, and I just think we needed. I even think, and I say this in the chat, I'm consistent with this. I think even Antonio Conte was an elite manager. I just think we've improved our squad so much, and even if they had if those two managers had our squad today, I think we would look at them in a different manner. I think the defenders we had under Conte were dreadful. I think we got away with it because we had two elite players with Harry Kane and Son. I mean, have you ever seen a manager that got that out of Harry? Harry won the Golden Boot and the assist trophy in a season where we were really terrible. And Jose Mourinho and Jose Mourinho got that out of Harry Kane. Harry Kane, that's iconic for me. No other manager Haaland can't do that, but Jose got that out of Harry. And
Chris, just quickly, because I understand what you're saying, right? But the problem with the squad now is Mourinho and Conte don't work with those young players. They would want experienced players. So I can't imagine that they would work with this squad.
Yeah,
no, that's what I mean. But
I agree with a lot of what you say, actually, Melvin, about Jose Mourinho. And how many times have I said on this podcast about I wish he had the opportunity to manage us in that League Cup final? You never ever know what have happened, and I agree with you. Also,
Jose went to Roma and won them a trophy, and they loved him there. And you should have seen the scenes that they did in Roma, how they celebrated when they won a trophy. Yeah. They went absolutely crazy. They will build. So it was
he also embarrassed the club in the Europa League final, but against Sevilla.
Let's go on to the final question. Simone, let's start with you. Predicted lineup, the lineup that you believe that Ange Postecoglou will put out to face Roma on Thursday evening, and why?
Okay, Forster in goal, Pedro Porro on the right, Archie Gray on the left, Dragusin and Ben Davis once again, and the couple of centre backs. Rodrigo Bentancur will clearly take back the spot as a number 6. I'm expecting Dejan Kulusevski to rest a little bit. So I'm expecting to play in midfield, Sarr on the center right, and James Maddison once again on the center left as a number 8. In front, I will think Sonny will rest a little bit. So Timo Werner, even because he went in very, very well against Man City, provided the platform to Brennan Johnson to score the 4th at the 80th. So Timo Werner on the left. I'm expecting Brendan Johnson to start being back on the starting line because he was rested at least at the start of the game against Man City at the 80th. So Brendan Johnson, Timo Werner, and no Richarlison. So I don't think Will Lancashire will play Rome. I think he will start with Solanke because playing Rome, guys, is not playing with the Goretz. With all the respect to the great Bulgarian side.
So when you talk about Dejan Kulusevski there, you're expecting him to be on the sub bench or not included at all. It's interesting because in the Europa League this season, he's played in all 4 games, but he has not started any of them. Is this a game, in your opinion, where he does actually need to start in the Europa League, given his form?
Well, he could start. Given his form, he should start. But of course, he cannot play week in and week out every game. So I think that maybe he deserves a short rest. Maybe because he showed that he can also have an impact coming from the bench. Of course, he knows Roma. He knows Italian football. He knows which kind of players he should face on Tuesday. But I think that maybe he could rest. So we'll see if Ange will pick him also for the Roma game, or maybe he will start him against Fulham.
So, mate, what's your score prediction?
3-1 for Spurs.
Lovely. Gareth, let's come to you. This is your predicted lineup. This is the team that you would like Ange Postecoglou to put out. Vicario, of course, that's not going to happen, so it'll be Forster. Gray, Dragushin, Davis, Udogi. Basuma, Sarr, Bergvall, Johnson, Solanke, and Timo Werner. And this is the lineup that you believe that Ange Postecoglou will put out. Forster, Porro, Dragushin, Davis, Gray, Basuma, Bergvall, Maddison, Johnson, Solanke, and Timo Werner. Interestingly, no Heung-min Son in both of these lineups.
I definitely think Son will be rested. Chris, I'm going to hold my hands up. I've made a mistake here. I've totally forgot about Bentancur because the ban thing was on my head, but obviously Bentancur's going to come on and play. So I would play Bissouma, Sarr, and Bentancur. I would actually agree with Simone and maybe give Bentancur a bit more of an advanced role. And then we would be very physical in that midfield. I would rest Madison. Bergvall, I think at the time I said to you, I would play him. But actually, I've thought about it more, and I think Roma quite physical. I would leave him out. So I've made a couple of changes to my team already here. But I definitely think Bentancur comes on. But I would like to see Bissouma and Sarr play just for that physical. I don't want to lose that midfield battle. And then you can always bring Madison and Kulusevski on if you need a bit more creativity. But Bentancur on that advanced role. Alongside Sarr, I think would be a good way to go. I think Bentancur would enjoy it more as well, not having that more defensive responsibility. Thought Bissouma was outstanding at the weekend. I mean, if Bissouma and Bentancur are at their best, I think Spurs are at their best because they can screen that defense well. I think Bentancur in some games, the game at Old Trafford, I thought he was outstanding. Other games he hasn't been so good, but I do agree with Simone. I do think he's been asked to play a position he's not familiar with, so you have to cut him some slack. But I'm not a fan, Chris, of fullbacks on the opposite side. That's why I would go with Gray on the right and give Porro a rest. I think we really need to go into the market in January and bring in another left back because I really don't like this Gray on the left side. I really don't. I just think it's uncomfortable for players being asked to play in that role because they're always coming back on the waist inside where the danger is instead of being on the outside. So I would really prefer to see him. We need to go on the market and get a left back. And I think we need to sign 2 players in the January window. I really do because I agree with Melvin. I know we don't agree a lot all the time, but I'm not sure we have the squad to keep everything going on all fronts, especially if we get to the final in the League Cup or have a good run in the FA Cup. You've got Europa League and the Premier League. I do think we need to strengthen. But that would be my team, Chris. The front three, I think, picks itself. Johnson comes on. Son gets a rest. Give Werner a go. And Solanke for me because Lankshire's suspended. And Richarlison's injured. So Solanke's got to play.
Do you know something that's interesting that no one's mentioned actually, Gareth? The fact that Jed Spence, everyone wanted him in the Europa League squad, but of course Ange Postecoglou chose to go with Fraser Forster instead. So that actually seems like a good decision now, doesn't it?
Well, that's it. That everyone was complaining about.
But then again, Spence could have played at left back.
Well, he could have done, but I don't like him playing at left back as this is. But
no.
Didn't he name 4 goalkeepers in the squad? So all of a sudden, if he didn't name the goalkeepers, you'd be relying on Forster staying fit. Now, if Forster was to get injured, we'd have no goalkeeper to put into the team.
Yeah.
So I think Ange believes he's got players that can play at fullback in an emergency. You have no emergency goalkeeper. You can't ask an outfielder to go in the nets.
Yeah. Melvin, let's come to you. Let's come to your team. This is the team that you would like to see and Postecoglou putting out. Vicario is not going to happen, so it'd be Fraser Forster, Porro, Dragushin, Davis, Gray, Bergvall, Bentancur, Madison, Timo Werner, Lancashire, Johnson. Predicted lineup: Forster, Porro, Dragushin, Davis, Gray, Bergvall, Bentancur, Madison, Timo Werner, Solanke, and Johnson. Do you want to talk us through this?
Yeah, I think the backline puts itself, and I put Lancashire on. I wanted to see Lancashire, but now you're talking. I forgot about the red card because I missed that game. I think the front line, Johnson, Werner, Solanke, you have to go strong. You have to respect Roma. You have to, even though they're struggling a bit, I think you still have to have a strong line to score in the Europa League. The midfield, Bentancur is going to start every single game now. In the Europa League. Bergvall, I think, needs minutes, and I would play him. Playing at home, you have to play that. You have to play him, and if we need to improve in the midfield, if you need strength, if you need creativity, you can always bring in Kulusevski. Madison, I chose him because I think. I don't know. I think him and Sarr could both do a job. I think Sarr's been playing well in the Europa League, and now that Garrett's done some substitutions, I might change mine to Sarr instead of Madison and rest Madison. But I think equally he's just as capable of playing there. And even though Roma are quite physical, so Sarr would be probably the smart option from the two. I'll be surprised, to be honest, if he plays Bissouma. I just think since Bentancur is suspended, I just think Bissouma is going to be played in the Premier League, and Bentancur played in the Europa League, and he'll just rest one and play the other week in, week out, and one can have a full week's rest and have a solid substitution every single time. So I don't think Bissouma is going to play. I'd be surprised if he plays.
Melvin, is there a rat in your house? I think there's an animal making a lot of noise there.
It's not me, Simone. No, it's not me, Gareth. It's Simone.
Get your pipes cleaned. Get your pipes checked. There's a rat in your house somewhere. You can hear it in the background there.
It's not me. It's Simone.
Simone, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Pleasure to have you here. Tell everyone where they can find you on social media. And you've got a very busy few days coming up because, of course, you're going to go and see the opening train session at the Hotspur Way. Then you're going to go to Andrew's press conference, Ranieri's press conference, and then, of course, in the press box at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium Thursday.
And tomorrow I'm going to be in Slovakia for the AC Milan game. So Mel's girlfriend will be very, very happy. So I will fly from Slovakia to London in the next couple of days. So it's gonna be very easy. Thank you guys. It's always a pleasure. You can follow me on Instagram, Simone Doc Dell'Uomo 21, and of course you can write me whenever you wish. Always a pleasure to be
going to the airport after this. You look like you're going straight to the airport after this.
Yeah, I have so many things to do, guys, to organize the journey.
Simone, I look forward to seeing you in London. I'll tell you what, just wrap up warm.
Sure.
It's very cold here at the moment.
Wow. Okay. I'm preparing psychologically myself, mentally myself.
Great to have you here. Thank you so much. And Gareth, where can people find you?
Chris, thanks very much for having me. Always good to come on the podcast and talk about Spurs. Great work as always. Really enjoying the podcast this season. And always good crack with the boys. And you always seem to bring on somebody that's going to try and rattle me as well. So that's good. It was Box Office and it was Melvin. I don't know who's going to be next, but keep them coming, Chris. Maybe Josie will pop up. Maybe Josie will pop up one of these streams, and I'll have a go at him as well. But
on the same page as Box Office, Gareth.
Actually, Gareth, before you go, who do you prefer, Box Office or Melvin, or is it a bit close?
I don't know. They're both very different in different ways. Box Office is, I think Box Office is probably he probably is a wee bit harder. Melvin, to be fair, it's more banter with me and Melvin, to be fair. I know we do disagree, but it's friendly banter. I think we Box Office, me and him would be more. If he was on more often, I think me and him would be probably not be able to speak to each other. Whereas Melvin and me and Melvin, it's lighthearted. So I just knew he would have something to say about Jose. He's still talking about the Jose ghost. But look, I really hope we meet Fenerbahce in this Europa League, and next year we meet Conte in the Champions League, because I think we're in a far better position with Ange than we are with those two. But look, that's up for debate. Everyone's got their opinion. But you can find me on @Yars Hotspurs, Chris, and you can also usually find me on here as well. My next Premier League game is the Chelsea game, and Chris, I have to say, thanks to your podcast, when I go into the Bricklayers or the Gilpin Bell before the game, everybody knows who's going there's the Irish fella who's on Chris's podcast, so I get a good welcome. So thanks for that opportunity, and I'll probably see you at the Chelsea game or on here before the Chelsea game.
Great. Thank you, Gareth. Thank you so much for your time. And Melvin, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram if you want to follow me there. I've had similar experiences with Gareth. When I was in Toronto, I got recognized for the first time, and I was watching the Ipswich game at the Scotland Yard, and funnily enough, I was sitting on the exact table that Brian Daigle used to sit on, and he was in England, and I took his spot there because he's from Toronto, and he recommended I would go there, and there were a table of guys who recognized me, bought me a drink, and in Toronto, because of the time difference, the games are really, really early, so we're drinking at 9 a.m., 10 a.m., so it was a strange match day, but I loved it and loved talking to those guys, and shout out to the the Toronto Spurs guys, and thanks for the drinks, and thanks for saying hello, and thanks for Chris, and because it's a strange feeling being recognized through a podcast, and the guy wasn't sure in the beginning that if it was me, and then he heard me speak, and then he recognized me immediately, probably because and then me and Gareth, a bit of insight, we just joke around on the WhatsApp, between us, bantering with Jose and Conte. We have mixed opinions, but it's all a good laugh, and but to be put on the same bracket as Alex, who's a funny character. I think his opinions are quite funny at times, but I think me and Gareth are more on the same page when it comes to Spurs and this current manager.
Melvin, what's your score prediction for the Roma game?
I think it will be 1-0 Spurs.
Gareth?
I'm going to agree with Simone. 3-1 Spurs.
3-1. I'm going to go for 2-1 Spurs. Simone, Gareth, Melvin, thank you so much for your time this evening. You've been great as usual. Look forward to having you all on again very soon. Simone, I look forward to seeing you in London on Thursday for the game. And thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Thank you so much for all of your incredible support, as always. We'll see you on the next one. Come on, you Spurs.
We'll be right back.